Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a new story. Enjoy the ride. The explosion rocked the prison transport ship as Cade burst through the smoke-filled corridor. His sharp eyes scanned the dimly lit holding area. Cages lined the walls. Most were empty, except for one. Inside sat a woman unlike anyone Cade had ever seen. Her emerald green skin shimmered under the dim lights, her figure sculpted with precision, but it was her eyes that held him captive, defiant, yet barely concealing a storm of despair. Cade's mind processed 1,000 details in seconds. Scratches marred the cage bars. Dried blood stained her knuckles. Her shoulders trembled slightly from exertion. "You tried to escape recently," he stated. Not a question. A fact. The woman's eyes widened. "How did you—" "No time," Cade interrupted, his fingers flying over the lock. "I'm Cade, and I'm getting you out of here." The cage door swung open with a metallic groan. The woman hesitated, torn between distrust and desperation. "You're strong," Cade observed, noting the defined muscles beneath her glowing skin. "Good. We'll need that. Now move." She stood gracefully despite her confinement. "I'm Sarah." Cade nodded sharply, already moving. "Stay close, Sarah, and stay quiet." They slipped through the corridors, Cade's eyes constantly sweeping for threats. Every detail mattered, the worn patches on the floor indicating frequent patrols, the faint discoloration on certain panels hinting at hidden security measures. "3 cameras ahead," he whispered. "We'll have a 12-second blind spot. Move fast." Sarah stared at him. "How do you even know that?" Cade smirked without humor. "I notice things." They sprinted across the junction, making it just in time. Sarah exhaled sharply. "Who are you?" "Someone who knows what it's like to be a prisoner," Cade replied, his voice hard. "Now quiet. Guard incoming." Sure enough, footsteps echoed down the hall. Cade tensed. As soon as the guard rounded the corner, Cade struck, one precise movement, a sharp twist, and the man crumpled to the ground without a sound. Sarah's eyes widened, a mix of fear and admiration. "You're good at this." "Had to be," Cade muttered, already moving again. "2 levels down to the escape pods. Ready to run?" She nodded, determination replacing hesitation. They moved swiftly through the ship, Cade dispatching guards with ruthless efficiency. Sarah found herself in awe of how he moved, how he seemed to anticipate threats before they even appeared. As they reached the escape pod bay, alarms blared. Cade cursed. "They know you're missing," he said, punching in launch codes. "We have 3 minutes, Max." The pod door hissed open. Cade ushered Sarah inside, then hesitated, scanning the bay one last time. "What?" Sarah asked, anxiety creeping into her voice. His brow furrowed. "Something's off. The security response is too slow, almost as if a massive explosion cut him off." Cade dove into the pod, slamming the launch button. The escape pod ejected into space, just as the prison ship erupted into a fireball behind them. In the sudden silence, Sarah turned to him, her green skin pale. "What just happened?" Cade's eyes were calculating. Someone else wanted that ship destroyed, someone powerful. He met her gaze. "Which raises the question, just how valuable are you?" Sarah swallowed hard. I don't know." Cade studied her. The fine quality of her torn clothing, the almost imperceptible accent in her speech, the way she held herself despite her ordeal. His mind connected dots invisible to most. "You're not just any prisoner," he said slowly. "You're someone important, someone dangerous to the wrong people." Sarah's shoulders slumped. "My family. They sold me. Said it was for the good of our people. I never understood why." Cade's expression softened slightly. "Political intrigue. Galactic power plays. You were a pawn in someone else's game." A spark of defiance flickered back into her eyes, and now a ghost of a smile crossed Cade's lips. Now, you're a wild card. And in my experience, wild cards are the most dangerous pieces on the board. The pod hurtled through space, leaving destruction behind. But as Sarah gazed out into the endless stars, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The escape pod tumbled through the void, the shattered remains of the slave ship burning behind them. Cade kept his gaze locked on the controls, fingers moving with precision as he adjusted their trajectory. Sarah sat stiffly beside him, her breaths shallow. The weight of what had just happened hung between them. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Cade didn't look up. "There's a safe spot on Vega 4. It's off the major trade routes, low security presence. We'll regroup there." She studied him. "And after that?" Now he glanced at her. "That depends. You need to tell me exactly who wants you dead." Sarah hesitated, uncertainty flickering across her face. "I told you. I don't know." Cade exhaled sharply, his patience thinning. Ships like that don't just explode by accident, and someone powerful enough to override its security system means you're worth more than I realized. "I don't like unknowns, Sarah, so start talking." Her jaw clenched. "I'm the daughter of High Chancellor Oris Velkari." Silence settled between them. Of course, the Velkari dynasty. One of the wealthiest, most influential ruling families in the Vorian system. If her father had sold her off, it meant someone had paid a fortune for her. "But why?" "Let me guess," Cade said, leaning back. "Your father told you it was for the good of your people." Sarah's lips tightened. "He said our world was in danger, that my sacrifice would secure its future." She let out a bitter laugh. "I believed him, until I found out he'd sold me to a slaver ring." Cade watched her carefully. There was more to this. There always was. Before he could press further, the console beeped a warning. Cade's stomach sank. "Problem?" Sarah asked. "Yeah," Cade muttered. "We've got company." Outside the viewport, 3 sleek black ships emerged from hyperspace, their glowing red engines cutting through the void like predatory eyes. Bounty hunters. Cade swore under his breath and tightened his grip on the controls. "Hang on, Princess. This ride's about to get rough." Sarah barely had time to protest before the pod lurched violently, diving into an asteroid field. Laser fire streaked past them, barely missing their hull. "You're insane!" she shouted, gripping her seat. Cade grinned, adrenaline surging. "Not insane, just better than them." He twisted the controls, guiding the pod through the labyrinth of tumbling space rock with terrifying precision. One of the pursuing ships wasn't so lucky. It clipped an asteroid, spiraled out of control, and erupted in a fiery explosion. "One. Down," Cade muttered. The remaining 2 stayed on their tail. Sarah grabbed onto the co-pilot's console. "Let me help!" Cade shot her a skeptical glance. "You know how to fly?" She gave him a wry smile. "No, but I know how to fight." She activated the pod's manual turret controls, bringing up a targeting display. As one of the bounty ships lined up for a shot, she squeezed the trigger. A blast of plasma ripped through space, catching the enemy's wing. The ship veered off, spiraling into the asteroids. Cade let out a low whistle. "Not bad, Princess," she smirked. "Stop calling me that." The last ship was still in pursuit, and their pod was taking heavy damage. The engines were overheating, the shields flickering. "Time for Plan B," Cade muttered. "And that is?" He slammed a switch, initiating a dangerous maneuver, cutting all power to the ship. Instantly, the escape pod went dark, drifting lifelessly among the asteroids. Sarah's heart pounded. "What are you doing?" "Making us invisible," Cade whispered. The bounty hunter ship slowed, scanning for them. Cade held his breath. Seconds passed. Then the enemy ship roared away, assuming they'd been destroyed. As soon as it was out of range, Cade reactivated the engines. The pod sputtered back to life. That, Sarah breathed, was the dumbest, most reckless, brilliant. Cade finished with a grin. She rolled her eyes but didn't argue. Now, he said, setting their course again, let's get to Vega 4 before someone else tries to kill us. As the stars stretched into hyperspace, Sarah leaned back, watching Cade with new eyes. He was reckless, infuriating. But there was no denying it. He was damn good at keeping them alive. And the stars stretched into long glowing streaks as the pod entered hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage, the bounty hunters, and the chaos, at least for now. Cade exhaled, running a hand through his dark, tousled hair. The adrenaline was fading, but the tension hadn't. He glanced at Sarah, who was staring at the console, her fingers drumming anxiously. "You good?" he asked. She scoffed. "We were just nearly blown to bits, and you're asking if I'm good?" Cade smirked. "Just checking." She crossed her arms. "Where exactly is this safe spot of yours?" Cade leaned back in his seat, stretching out his legs. "Vega 4. Backwater mining planet, barely any law enforcement, and a place where people don't ask questions. It's where I go when I need to disappear." Sarah narrowed her eyes. "So, you do this a lot? Rescue damsels, evade bounty hunters, run from explosions?" Cade's smirk faltered for half a second before returning. "More like survive bad decisions. Speaking of, what exactly did your father get you into?" Sarah's gaze dropped to her hands. "I told you everything I know." Cade studied her. "No, you told me everything you think you know. There's a difference." Before she could respond, the pod's console beeped, an incoming transmission. Cade frowned. "That's not possible. This pod shouldn't be broadcasting a signal." He hesitated, then pressed a button. Static filled the cabin before a garbled voice broke through. "Sarah Velkari, you cannot run forever." The transmission cut out. Sarah paled. Cade's jaw clenched. "Well, that's ominous." Sarah looked at him, fear flashing in her emerald eyes. "They found us." Cade checked the scanners. "Not yet. If they had, we'd be dead. Someone's just reminding you that they're watching." Sarah took a slow breath, gripping the edge of the console. "Who are they?" Cade shook his head. "No idea. But we're gonna find out." A red light blinked on the nav panel. "We're coming up on Vega 4. Strap in." Sarah fastened her harness as the pod lurched out of hyperspace, dropping into orbit above a dusty, amber-colored world. Storm clouds swirled over rust-colored mountains, and clusters of rundown buildings dotted the surface below. Cade guided the pod toward a desolate outpost on the outskirts of a mining colony. As they descended, static crackled over the comms. A voice, gruff and irritated, cut through. "Unregistered vessel, state your purpose." Cade hit the comm. "Relax, Jex, it's me." A pause, then a dry chuckle. "Cade, you son of a—" "Thought you were dead. Again." Cade grinned. "Not for lack of trying. Landing pads open. But you better have credits this time." The comm cut off. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Friend of yours?" Cade snorted. "Friend is a strong word. He doesn't try to kill me when I show up, so that's close enough." The pod touched down with a shudder. Cade powered down the engines and turned to Sarah. "Welcome to Vega 4. Try not to look important, or someone will try to sell you." Sarah shot him a glare. Comforting. They stepped out onto the landing pad, dust swirling around them. A broad-shouldered man with cybernetic implants and a wicked scar across his jaw leaned against a crate, arms crossed. "Jex." He eyed Sarah, then smirked at Cade. "You finally get yourself a partner? Or just another bad decision?" Sarah bristled, but Cade just grinned. "Let's call it a work in progress." Jex chuckled. "Come inside before someone decides to shoot you." They followed him into a dimly lit bar at the edge of the outpost. The place smelled like engine grease and regret, filled with mercenaries, bounty dodgers, and off-world traders. Cade slid into a booth. We need information. Jex raised an eyebrow. That usually means trouble. Cade smirked. You love trouble. Jex sighed. All right. What kind of information? Cade leaned forward. There's a bounty out for her. High price. Who's behind it? Jex eyed Sarah again, taking a long sip from his drink. That explains the heat on your tail, but you're asking the wrong question, Cade. It's not who wants her, it's why. Sarah stiffened. Why? Jex tossed a small hollow projector on the table. It flickered to life, displaying a planetary map with flashing red markers. 3 days ago, a warship left the Vorian capital. Unregistered. No record of its purpose. And it's heading this way. Cade's smirk vanished. Jex looked between them. So you tell me, Princess, why is an unregistered warship coming after you? Silence. Sarah's stomach twisted. Cade's fingers tapped against the table, his mind racing. Then he exhaled sharply and stood. Looks like we just ran out of time. Sarah swallowed hard. What do we do? Cade grabbed his blaster, checking the charge. We get answers. And we get the hell off this rock before that ship turns it into glass. Jex leaned back. You do realize the only way off this planet right now is through the main spaceport. Cade nodded. Then we'll steal a ship. Jex let out a low laugh. Now that is why I like you, Cade. Sarah sighed. This is insane. Cade grinned, already heading for the door. Yeah, but it'll be fun. The air in Jex's bar felt heavier now. Sarah's fingers clenched around the edge of the table, her mind racing. A warship was coming for her. Not bounty hunters, not slavers. Something worse. Cade had already pushed back from the booth, checking his blaster. We need to move, now! Jex chuckled, sipping his drink. Stealing a ship from Vega 4's main port? Suicidal? I like it. Cade shot him a look. You in? Jex smirked. Depends. You got credits this time? Cade sighed. I'll owe you. Jex grinned. That's what I was hoping you'd say. Sarah exhaled. This is insane, Cade grinned. Welcome to my life, Princess. She glared. Stop calling me that. Cade just winked and turned toward the exit. Let's go. The Vega 4 spaceport was a chaotic mess of cargo freighters, rusting haulers, and small-time smugglers looking for a quick deal. The air smelled of fuel and desperation. Cade, Sarah, and Jex moved through the crowds, blending in. Cade's eyes swept the docking bays, searching. There. He nodded toward a mid-sized freighter, sleek but sturdy. The Phantom's Edge. Fast. Good weapons. And, he grinned, not ours yet. Jex let out a low whistle. Nice pick. And who exactly owns it? Some off-world smuggler named Rollo Vex. Jex snorted. Rollo? That guy's a psycho. This'll be fun. Sarah crossed her arms. And how do you plan on getting on board? Cade smirked. Simple. We walk in like we own the place. Sarah raised an eyebrow. That's your plan? Jex laughed. Classic Cade. They approached the ship's loading ramp. A burly guard stood at the entrance, arms crossed. Cade put on his best cocky grin. Hey, Captain Rollo sent us to check the fuel injectors. The guard frowned. I didn't hear nothing about that. Jex sighed dramatically. Of course you didn't. He said to keep it quiet. Something about a business deal. He doesn't want the authorities sniffing around. The guard hesitated. Cade leaned in. Look, buddy, you tell Rollo you delayed us. You explained to him why his ship stalled in the middle of deep space. That did it. The guard grumbled, then stepped aside. Make it quick. As they walked up the ramp, Sarah glanced at Cade. You really think fast, huh? Cade grinned. It's a gift. Inside, the ship was empty. For now. All right, Cade said, moving to the cockpit. Jex, get the engines prepped. Sarah, help me override the security lockout. Sarah slid into the co-pilot's seat, her hands hovering over the controls. I don't know how to fly. Cade smirked. Good. Then don't touch anything. She scowled. I hate you. he chuckled, typing in a bypass code. The ship hummed to life. "Got it," Jex called. "Engines are hot." The cockpit comm suddenly crackled. "What the hell is going on?" Cade winced. "Ah, that'd be Rollo." Outside, a dozen armed men were running toward the ship. Sarah's eyes widened. "We are so dead." Cade hit the throttle. "Not today, Princess." The ship roared off the ground, its engines kicking up dust as it blasted into the sky. Shots rang out, bouncing off the hull. In the cockpit, alarms blared. "We've got company," Jex yelled. Two small pursuit ships were lifting off from the spaceport, locking onto them. Sarah looked at Cade. "Can you fly?" He grinned. "Define fly," she groaned. "I hate you." The first enemy ship fired. The Phantom's edge rocked violently. Cade's hands flew over the controls. "Jex, get to the turrets!" Jex bolted. Sarah clutched the console. "What do I do?" Cade smirked. "Try not to scream." The chase was on. Laser fire streaked past as Cade spun the ship into a sharp dive, dodging between storm clouds. Jex's voice crackled over the intercom. "Turrets are online! Let's see how these bastards like plasma!" The ship shuddered as Jex fired. One of the pursuers exploded in a ball of flame. "Nice shot!" Cade shouted. The second ship wasn't giving up. Sarah's fingers clenched. "We can't!" "Outrun it?" Cade shook his head. "Not in Atmo." She hesitated. "Then, let's trap them." Cade raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." Sarah pointed at the storm clouds below. "Take us into the turbulence." Cade's smirk returned. "Now you're thinking like a criminal." He yanked the controls, plunging the ship into the thick storm. Wind and lightning crashed around them. The enemy ship followed. "Jex!" Cade yelled. "Fire when I say!" Jex growled. "This better work!" Lightning flashed, and for a moment, the enemy ship was fully illuminated, directly behind them. "Now!" Cade shouted. Jex fired, a direct hit. The enemy ship spun out of control, swallowed by the storm. Sarah exhaled. "We made it," Cade grinned. "Told you it'd be fun." She rolled her eyes. "You're the worst." The ship broke through the clouds. Racing toward the upper atmosphere, Jex ran back into the cockpit. "We in the clear?" Cade checked the scanners, then frowned. "No," he muttered. Sarah sat up. "What?" Cade turned the screen toward them. The unregistered warship had just entered orbit above Vega 4. Sarah's stomach dropped. "They found us." Cade clenched his jaw. "Looks like we're not done running yet." The unregistered warship loomed above Vega 4, its dark hull blotting out the stars. Alarms blared inside the Phantom's edge as Cade gritted his teeth. "They must have tracked us through the bounty network. We need to get the hell out of here." Sarah's hands gripped the edge of her seat. "That thing's got military-grade weapons. We won't outrun it." Jex, still breathing hard from the last fight, let out a low whistle. "That's a Centauri-class cruiser. You piss off some very powerful people, Princess." Sarah shot him a glare. "Not a princess." Jex smirked. "Sure, Your Highness." Cade ignored them, scanning the console. "We've got one chance. If we can break orbit before they lock onto us, we can jump to hyperspace." A red warning light flashed. Too late. A deep, mechanical voice echoed through the ship's speakers. "Phantom's Edge, this is the warship Vindicator. Power down and prepare to be boarded." Sarah's heart pounded. Cade's smirk didn't fade. "Oh, yeah? Or what?" The voice responded coldly. "Or we blast you out of the sky." Cade exhaled sharply. "All right, that's fair." Sarah turned to him. "You're not actually thinking about surrendering, are you?" Cade leaned back. "Hell no. But I am thinking about how we don't die in the next 2 minutes." Another alarm blared. Jex cursed. "They just locked a tractor beam on us." The ship lurched violently as invisible energy gripped them, dragging them toward the Vindicators. Docking bay. Sarah's breath caught. "Cade, yeah, working on it." His fingers flew over the controls, but there was no escape. The Phantom's edge shuddered as it was pulled inside the Vindicator's hangar. The moment they touched down, a squad of armored soldiers surrounded them, weapons raised. Jex sighed. Well, this sucks. The ship's ramp hissed open, and the three of them were met with a tall, imposing figure, cloaked in black armor, his face hidden behind a visor. His voice was deep, calculated. Sarah Velkari, you're coming with me. Sarah's stomach clenched. Who the hell are you? The man stepped forward. I am Commander Rhine, and I am here to take you home. Sarah's hands curled into fists. My home sold me to slavers. I'm not going anywhere with you. Commander Rhine tilted his head. Is that what you think? He turned to one of his officers. Show her. A hollow projector flickered to life. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Her father, Chancellor Orcs Velkari, stood. In the hologram, his expression grim. Sarah, if you see this, you're in danger. The people I made a deal with, they lied. It was never about protecting our people. It was about controlling me. If you're alive, you must run. Because if they catch you... The message cut out. Sarah felt the world tilt beneath her. My father didn't betray me, she whispered. Rhine's voice was calm. No, he was trying to protect you. Cade crossed his arms. All right, nice family reunion. But why the bounty? Why send warships after her? Rhine's visor glowed under the hangar lights. Because the people who tried to buy her, the Syndicate, will stop at nothing to get her back. Sarah's blood ran cold. The Syndicate? Jex let out a low curse. Oh, that's bad. Cade frowned. Okay. Someone want to tell me who the hell they are? Rhine turned to him. The Syndicate is a secret council of the richest and most powerful crime lords in the galaxy. They don't just run smuggling rings or bounty operations, they own governments. They trade in weapons, technology, and people. Sarah felt sick. And I was just... Another trade? Rhine's visor tilted slightly. No, you were something more. Sarah swallowed hard. What? Rhine hesitated, then spoke. You are the key to unlocking an ancient Vorian artifact. One that could shift the balance of power in the entire galaxy. Silence. Jex blinked. Well, that escalated quickly. Cade sighed. Yeah, that tracks. Sarah's voice was hoarse. What artifact? Rhine studied her. We don't know exactly, but the Syndicate believes it can only be accessed by a direct descendant of the Velkari bloodline. And you are the last one. Sarah shook her head. No, there has to be someone else. A cousin, a relative. Rhine's voice was cold. There isn't. The Syndicate made sure of that. Her breath caught. You mean... They killed them. The words hit like a physical blow. Sarah took a step back. Her mind was spinning. Why me? I don't even know anything about this artifact. Rhine's voice softened slightly. It doesn't matter. They don't need your knowledge. They just need your blood. Jex grimaced. Yeah, that's not ominous at all. Sarah turned to Cade. What do we do? Cade was silent for a long moment. Then he exhaled. Well, I was gonna suggest we take a vacation, but apparently we're saving the galaxy now. Sarah let out a short, shaky laugh. Rhine took a step forward. Come with me. Let us protect you. Cade frowned. Not so fast, Tin Man. How do we know you're not just another person trying to use her? Rhine met his gaze. You don't. But if she stays here, the Syndicate will find her, and they will not be as forgiving as I am. Sarah's fingers twitched. She felt trapped, caged again. Cade studied her. Then, to everyone's surprise, he held out his hand. You don't have to trust him, he said softly. But do you trust me? Sarah looked at him. This rogue smuggler who had risked his life again and again to keep her safe. And for the first time in her life, she did trust someone. She took his hand. Cade smirked. Well, that's settled then. Let's go piss off some crime lords. Jex groaned. Why do I hang out with you? Cade grinned. Because I make life interesting. Ryan nodded. Then let's not waste any more time. The group moved toward the warship's interior, but as Sarah walked, one thought lingered in her mind. If the Syndicate had murdered her entire bloodline, then they would never stop hunting her. And that meant, sooner or later, she'd have to hunt them first. The Vindicator's engines rumbled as the warship moved into hyperspace, leaving Vega 4 far behind. Sarah sat in the warship's briefing room, her mind spinning. Just hours ago, she was running for her life. Now she was sitting in the heart of a military vessel, surrounded by people claiming to protect her. She wasn't sure which was worse. Across the table, Commander Ryan leaned forward, his visor reflecting the dim overhead lights. You want answers, he said. You'll get them. Cade, leaning against the wall, crossed his arms. Finally. Been waiting for this part. Sarah ignored him. Start with the artifact. What is it? Ryan tapped a button on the console. A hologram flickered to life, an image of an ancient metallic structure buried beneath a desert planet. It's called the Celestial Vault, Ryan explained, an ancient Vorian site hidden for centuries. Legends say it contains knowledge, technology beyond anything the galaxy has ever seen. Jex let out a low whistle. And I thought I had expensive taste, Sarah frowned. What does that have to do with me? Ryan's gaze locked onto her. The vault can only be opened by someone of Velkari blood. Sarah's breath caught. Cade let out a low chuckle. Of course. Because nothing in life is ever simple. Jex grinned. So let me get this straight. The Syndicate wiped out the rest of Sarah's family, just to get her to unlock a space treasure chest? Ryan nodded. Exactly. Sarah's hands curled into fists. Then I'll destroy it. If they can't have it... You think they don't have a backup plan? Ryan interrupted. If they can't use you, they'll clone you. Or worse. Silence filled the room. Sarah's heart pounded. So what do we do? Cade pushed off the wall. Easy. We get there first. Ryan turned to him. That's the plan. But getting to the vault is the easy part. His visor tilted towards Sarah. You need to be ready for what's inside. Sarah swallowed hard. What's inside? Ryan hesitated. Then the warship shook violently. Alarms blared. A voice crackled over the intercom. Commander, we've got incoming. Syndicate warships just dropped. Out of hyperspace, Cade cursed. That was fast. Ryan stood. Get to the bridge, now. The Vindicator's bridge was chaos. Officers scrambled over control panels as the Syndicate fleet appeared on the main display. 3 heavily armed cruisers loomed ahead, their weapons charging. We're outgunned, one officer called. Ryan didn't hesitate. Shields up. Weapons. Online. Hold position. Cade frowned. Holding position? That's your plan? Ryan ignored him. A Syndicate transmission came through, the holographic image of a masked figure appearing in the air. Surrender the girl, the figure said, and we will let you live. Sarah stepped forward before anyone could stop her. Who are you? The figure chuckled. I am a messenger. You, Sarah Velkari, belong to us. This is not a negotiation, Cade muttered. I hate this guy already. Sarah lifted her chin. You killed my family. I will never belong to you. The masked figure's voice darkened. Then you will die screaming. The transmission cut out. Seconds. Later, the Syndicate ships opened fire. The Vindicator shuddered under the assault. Ryan's officers fired back, but they were badly outmatched. Jex grabbed onto the console. We need a way out of here. Now. Cade scanned the battle map. There's an asteroid field 10,000 kilometers off our port side. If we can reach it, we'll be ripped apart. One officer interrupted. Cade grinned. Not if we fly like hell. Ryan hesitated. Then he nodded. Do it. The Vindicator veered hard to the left, engines burning as it raced for the asteroid belt. The syndicate ships followed. Sarah's heart pounded as the warship dodged massive chunks of rock, syndicate lasers flashing past the viewport. Cade watched. The radar. "They're still on us," Ryan's jaw tightened. "Not for long," he turned to his weapons officer. "Fire the rear torpedoes. Detonate the asteroids." The officer hesitated, then pressed a button. The Vindicator's torpedoes streaked out, striking the largest asteroids ahead. The result was instant chaos. Dozens of massive space rocks exploded outward, creating a storm of debris. The Syndicate. Ships tried to dodge. One was too slow. It slammed into a rock and erupted in flames. Cade let out a low whistle. "Damn, that was beautiful." Ryan didn't flinch. "We're still not safe." Sarah's eyes widened. "Look!" On the radar, the remaining two Syndicate ships had changed course. They weren't chasing anymore. They were moving ahead. Cade's face darkened. "They're cutting us off," Jex cursed. "So much for running." Ryan's visor gleamed. "Then we stop. Running!" He turned to Sarah. "You wanted to destroy the Syndicate? Now's your chance." Sarah took a breath. "What do we do?" Ryan pointed at the console. "The Syndicate doesn't just want you. They need you alive. That means they won't risk damaging the ship you're on." Cade's eyes widened. "Oh, hell no. You're suggesting we fly straight at them?" Ryan nodded. "It'll force them to hesitate. That's when we strike." Jex let out a groan. "I hate this plan." Sarah steeled herself. Then she looked at Cade. "You with me?" she asked. Cade's gaze softened, just for a second. Then he smirked. "Princess, I'm always with you." Sarah turned back to Ryan. "Let's do it." The final charge. The Vindicator's engines roared as it turned toward the Syndicate warships, racing straight for them. The Syndicate hesitated, their weapons flickering off for a second. That second was all they needed. Ryan gave the command. Fire. Everything! A barrage of missiles and plasma fire erupted from the Vindicator, slamming into the Syndicate lead ship. The massive cruiser shattered apart, exploding into a fiery wreck. The last remaining Syndicate ship turned and ran. Cade let out a laugh. "Now that's what I call a tactical retreat," Ryan exhaled. "They'll be back." Sarah watched the burning wreckage outside. No, she wasn't running anymore. She looked at Cade, then at Ryan. "The Syndicate wants me," she said quietly. "Fine." She clenched her fists. "Then let's take the fight to them." Cade smirked. "Now you're talking," Jex groaned. "Why do I hang out with you people?" Sarah smiled for the first time in days. Because this wasn't just about survival anymore. This was war. The wreckage of the Syndicate warship burned in the darkness of space, its shattered remains drifting silently. On the Vindicator's bridge, the air was tense. Sarah stood at the viewport, watching the flames flicker out in the void. For the first time since this nightmare began, they weren't running. They had won, but this wasn't over. Not even close. Cade leaned against the console, arms crossed. "So, we just picked a fight with the biggest crime syndicate in the galaxy. I'd say that went well." Jex snorted. "Define well, we nearly died." Cade smirked. "Yeah, but we didn't. That's what matters." Commander Ryan ignored them, his attention on Sarah. "You meant what you said, didn't you?" Sarah turned to face him. "About taking the fight to the Syndicate?" Her green eyes burned with determination. "Yes," Ryan nodded. "Then we need a plan." Cade pushed off the console. "Oh, I love plans. Step 1, find the bad guys. Step 2, punch the bad guys. Step 3, profit." Sarah rolled her eyes. "You're impossible." Cade grinned. "And yet you keep me around." Ryan sighed. "Focus." He pressed a button on the console and a holographic map of the galaxy appeared. "The Syndicate isn't just one organization," he explained. "It's a network of crime lords, warlords, and corrupt politicians all working together. If we want to bring them down, we can't just attack them head on." Sarah frowned. Then what? Do? Ryan's visor glowed. We cut off their power, one piece at a time, Jex whistled. You mean, start a war? Ryan nodded. Exactly. Cade studied the holographic display. All right, who's first? Ryan zoomed in on a flashing red marker. Darius Vox. The name sent a chill down Sarah's spine. I know that name. You should, Ryan said grimly. He's the one who arranged your sale to the slavers. Sarah's hands curled into fists. Darius runs Black Star Station, a deep space trade hub outside Republic jurisdiction. It's where the Syndicate handles their most illegal operations: weapons, cybernetics, smuggling, and human trafficking. Cade's smirk vanished. All right. That's officially disgusting. Jex cracked his knuckles. So what's the plan? Fly in, blast the place to hell? Ryan shook his head. No. That's what they'd expect. Black Star is heavily fortified. We'd never survive a direct assault. Sarah exhaled sharply. Then what do? Cade grinned. We sneak in, cause chaos, and make sure Darius regrets ever being born. Jex groaned. Of course it's a stealth mission. Sarah hesitated. But how do we even get onto Black Star Station? Won't they recognize me? Ryan's visor tilted toward her. Not if you're someone else, she frowned. What do you mean? Cade's smirk widened. Time for a disguise, princess, Sarah glared. If you make me wear something ridiculous, I will shoot you. Cade chuckled. No promises. A few hours later, the Phantom's Edge dropped out of hyperspace near Black Star Station, a massive floating city built into an asteroid field. It was a hive of crime, smugglers, mercenaries, and syndicate enforcers moving through the docking bays like insects in a nest. Inside the ship, Sarah stared at herself in the mirror. Her usual sleek, noble attire was gone. Instead, she wore a worn-out smuggler's jacket, black gloves, and a utility belt filled with hidden weapons. Her emerald-green skin was concealed under a holographic disguise, giving her a more human appearance. Cade leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Gotta say, you almost look like a real outlaw. Sarah smirked. I learned from the best. Cade mock-bowed. Flattery will get you everywhere. Jex walked in, adjusting his stolen bounty hunter armor. All right, lovebirds, let's go. Sarah rolled her eyes. I hate you both. Cade grinned. You say that, but I know deep down you'd be lost without us. She shoved past him. Let's just get this over with. They entered Black Star Station through Docking Bay 42, blending into the crowds. The air smelled of engine grease, smoke, and desperation. All around them, syndicate thugs, bounty hunters, and black market dealers went about their business. Jex scanned the area. All right, where's our guy? Cade pointed toward a VIP lounge on the upper level. Darius Vox, up there. Sarah clenched her jaw. Let's go kill him. Cade held up a hand. Slow down, killer. We need information, not just revenge. She exhaled. Fine. What's the plan? Cade smirked. Simple. We get in, make him talk, and then you can kill him. Sarah gave him a look. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Cade's grin widened. A little. They moved through the crowd, heading toward the VIP lounge, completely unaware that someone was already watching them. As they reached the entrance to the lounge, Cade whispered, Act natural. Sarah rolled her eyes. What do smugglers even do? Jex snorted. Drink, gamble, and make bad decisions. They stepped inside. Darius Vox sat in a lavish booth, surrounded by bodyguards and alien dancers. He was a bald, cybernetically enhanced brute, his red cyber eyes scanning the room. Cade grinned. All right, let's make some bad decisions. But before they could move, a voice cut through the noise. Well, look who finally showed up. The music stopped. The crowd parted, and standing there, grinning like a wolf, was a bounty hunter, In full armor, a hunter that Sarah recognized instantly. Her blood ran cold. "Hello, princess," the bounty hunter purred. "Did you really think we wouldn't find you?" Cade groaned. "Oh, Sarah, who is this?" Sarah's throat tightened. "Her name is Nyx." Jex frowned. "And why does she look like she wants to murder us?" Nyx's smile sharpened. "Because I do." She drew her blaster. "And this time, you're not getting away." To be continued.